Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are connecting from today. Happy Tuesday. If it's still Tuesday for you, it can be like Kirstin, which is almost Wednesday, I think. It's 11 p.m. for her. So make sure that you give her a strong round of applause for being here so late for her for this interview. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I am super excited about the conversation that we are about to have about Head and Heart, the art of modern leadership. This is part of our Hacking HR live chat series, which we took a little bit of a break between mid-July and all of August. And now we are coming back to it and super excited about all the conversations that we will have as part of this series of interviews going forward. So we invite a number of authors to be here with us and to share the research, the ideas, the conversations they are having, and hopefully teaching us a lot of things for us to learn and get better. So for all of you connected online right now, please let us know where you are connecting from in the world. Just post it in the chat. Let us know where you're connecting from. And it would be awesome. It would be awesome to know where everybody's connecting from. If you have any questions throughout this conversation, please make sure that you post it in the chat. I would love to know what you're thinking about when we are having this conversation. So make sure that you post your questions in there. If you have any comments or any insights, any story, anything that you want to share related, of course, to this conversation, please make sure that you use that chat generously. So I'm reading some of your comments. I'm seeing people from Pakistan, France, Philadelphia, Romania, India, Bahrain. What else? Of course, from the US, there's also South Africa, Germany. So you got a wide global audience here, Kirsten. The UK, LA, Colombia, the Philippines, Indonesia. Well, thank you so much, everybody. So good to see you all. And once again, welcome. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome to the stage Kirstin, who is going to be talking with us today about Head and Heart, the art of modern leadership. Kirstin, good evening, good almost
Henry,
night for you.
it is. It's almost midnight. It's 11 p.m. I noticed in that long list of countries there wasn't anyone else from Australia, so they must all be in bed at the moment, but they'll catch
Everybody's
up.
sleeping. Everybody's
I
sleeping except you. You are
It's
here.
great to be here with you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I am very excited about this conversation. And of course, I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. And I know it's super late for you. So I hope that our questions and the engagement from the audience keeps you awake for the next, half an hour so that, you use all the rest of the energy for the day and then, peacefully can go to bed.
I may not sleep tonight. It's an exciting moment anyway, because the time has just ticked over. Today is publication day for my book in North America and worldwide. So
Wow.
it's very exciting.
Well, congratulations. When you say today, I mean, do you mean today for me or today,
Uh,
tomorrow for
well,
you?
well, it was actually published in Australia at the end of January. So this is today for you. It's now worldwide. So it's
Wow.
very
Well,
exciting. Yeah.
congratulations. That is amazing. And I feel honored to be, interviewing you today as you launch your book, Head and Heart, The Art of Modern
I should
Leadership.
show it. Here it is.
Here,
Yeah.
I have my copy here,
Oh,
directly from
fantastic.
Australia. This is my copy. So thank you, thank you so much, Kirsten. I appreciate it. And let's begin the conversation. Can you please tell the audience more about you? The work you've done and why you wrote a book about modern leadership that is called Head and Heart.
I mean, great question. And as if there aren't already thousands of leadership books, and I was acutely aware of that. And I guess, I'm an unusual writer around leadership. So I have been a leader myself. I actually began my career in the military
Wow.
as a young 17-year-old, joined the Royal Australian Air Force and trained to become an officer. Spent my time obviously learning a really particular type of leadership in that experience. Then went on to do law and became the CEO of a global consulting company. And I've been sitting on company boards for more than a decade. So I've had all sorts of leadership experience myself for 30 years. But in addition to that, I went and did a PhD in leadership. And so I guess, I've got this real head and heart approach myself to thinking about leadership. My head, the academic side, we all know is very helpful, but sometimes it feels a long way from the reality, what our heart
Yeah.
tells us actually happens on the ground. And I guess I wanted to write a book that sort of brought those experiences to life. And the idea of head and heart came about actually from listening to a moment from Simon Sinek in a TED talk, probably 10 years ago now, where he very briefly mentioned a moment in the Afghanistan war about a Captain Will Swenson, a Marine captain. And it was this incredibly powerful moment where I wanted to know more and went down a deep rabbit hole to learn everything I could about this particular Marine captain. And it set me on a path. And it was this beautiful story of him finding himself on a battlefield and unexpectedly in command. He was only 31.
Wow.
And there's this beautiful footage that was captured on the head cam of a US military helicopter aircrew, and you see him give this gorgeous kiss on the cheek to one of his sergeants who was being put onto the helicopter to be given some medical support. Anyway, it was this moment, when you have those pivotal moments, and
Yeah.
I looked at this and I thought he showed all the head-based leadership attributes we would want and expect from someone in that situation: command and control and capability and skills and real bravery and courage. Yet he also led with heart and showed in a single moment what it means to lead with empathy and self-awareness of the impact we can have. And so that then started me thinking. It was during the pandemic, the kinds of leaders we were seeing emerge around us that were not traditional leaders. They
Yeah.
were leaders that emerged within our communities, in our families, unexpectedly within our organizations, that weren't dependent on those really traditional, formal, hierarchical positions for leadership.
Yeah.
These were leaders that could truly lead with their head and their heart in every context. And I
Yeah.
wanted to understand, what are the attributes of this modern kind of leader?
Wow. Fascinating. And we're going to talk about the attributes of these kinds of leaders. But I am thinking about, you mentioned the example of a military leader in the war. You mentioned the example of the pandemic. And I'm thinking how crisis, in plural, bring out, some of the best of us, and in some people also the worst of them, right? I mean, we saw leaders that became the beacon of hope for organizations during the pandemic, leading with head and heart. And some leaders really, like, firing people on a Zoom call for 5 minutes. And for those leaders who did that, who fired people on a Zoom call for 5 minutes, their reputation has been damaged for forever. Whereas those that did the right thing and try to go as far as they could to preserve their culture, their organization, the people that were working for them, we're gonna remember them for that. And my question to you then is, why it, when it's evident that leading with empathy, leading with love, leading with kindness and compassion delivers value for people and organizations, why is it that there are still so many leaders that are like, nope, that's fluffy, that is,
Yeah.
lovey-dovey, that is for home, here is to work? Why has it been so difficult to embrace this hard way of leading?
I think it's been ingrained in us for centuries. If you think about the leaders we learnt about at school, for example, it was always those formal leaders at the top of the pyramid. It was
Hmm.
kings, mainly men,
Yeah.
kings and explorers, titans of industry, always those leaders who had formal command and control. And they were taught or expected to be all knowing and to have
Yeah.
all the answers. And they were rewarded for that. And so for so long, really only until the last few years, I think we've now accepted that we don't actually want leaders who have inherited their place. We actually want leaders who understand that being a leader is a real privilege.
Yeah.
It's not an entitlement. It's not something you're born or entitled to have. And in fact, all of us are leading already all the time. And so what we saw in the pandemic is leaders who were not with a formal title whatsoever. They might have had no followers in the traditional sense, but they were able to lead in that moment. And I think for me, leadership is simply a series of moments, and
Yeah.
every single moment is an opportunity to leave a positive legacy. And
Mhm.
what you were talking about before is those leaders who recognize that. They recognize that every conversation is going to leave an impact on someone else. And unfortunately, those traditional leaders, they still exist. And given it's 11 p.m. for me, I can give a little bit of language. I refer to them as the dinosaurs and dickheads that
Mm.
still exist. They're still in the world, and we still need to work with them. But what we need to do is continue to focus on being the modern leaders, because they're the leaders that people expect around them. And that I think, from my experience sitting on boards as well, that we're increasingly wanting to recruit to the highest levels,
Yeah.
because we know they're the leaders that aren't going to get an organization into a reputational crisis.
Yeah. I love that. And I know you probably coach a number of leaders, right? And I am sure, probably going out of bounds here, but I'm sure that some of them tell you, Kirsten, secretly, I don't have all the answers, but I'm
Yeah.
afraid of telling people that I don't have all the answers because they look at me for answers. So it's a two-way street. What's going on here? One side is people saying, I want a leader who leads with the heart, but they don't necessarily like somebody who says, I don't have all the answers. Let's do it together, because they are looking up to them for answers. And then that creates a sense of insecurity, perhaps in some of these leaders, that they feel that if they say, I don't have all the answers, they will lose their leverage,
Yeah.
they will lose their authority. So, how do you manage that?
And
What do you tell them?
such a great question. And this is where head and heart comes in. And the second part of the title of the book is the art of modern leadership. The art is actually knowing what is needed and when. So
Mm,
if you're in the middle of a crisis, if you were Captain Swenson on the Afghanistan battlefield and you say, I don't know what to do, like I don't have all the answers, but let's just muddle through together, you're probably not picking or reading the room very well.
yeah.
But if you're in a genuine, you've got a product issue that you're trying to solve, a really unique issue, and you get your team together and say, this is completely new. I haven't seen every element of this before, but I know between us we all have. So, what are your thoughts on how we can get this together? I don't believe that that is where you show you're vulnerable. In fact, you build trust by being
Mm,
prepared to say you don't have all the answers. Because the bottom line is we don't. So, as much
yeah.
as you try and pretend you do, people see through that straight away. So, I
Yeah.
think leading with the head and the heart and integrating the leader you are across all aspects of your life, because the attributes we have as leaders in our families and in our communities are actually exactly the kind of attributes we need at work, and vice versa. So I'll often speak to traditional older male leaders, just let's use one example, who perhaps have always been taught not to bring empathy to work. It's not a place for empathy. Let's just focus on
Mm,
deliverables. Yet when I speak to them about their grandchildren and about their work in the community or with the church, they've got endless bounds of empathy that they lead with.
yeah.
And so it's a matter of really helping everyone to understand that we have the skills, everyone has the skills to be a modern leader, but it's freeing ourselves to be able to do that when we're at work.
Yeah. It's interesting because science, we're born with kindness and love and empathy, mothers and their babies and families. And then you go to school. I always say, and I think Sir Ken Robinson said this in the most watched TED Talk ever, that creativity is educated out of us. So I took that and now I say empathy has been educated and work-placed out of us, because you go to school and you are rewarded for pretty much spitting out facts that you are copying from somebody else, and you're competing with your classmates, and then you go to work and you have to compete to get a job, and then you have to compete to get a top performance review. So it's all competition. And then collaboration, empathy, kindness, compassion are on the sidelines, because you have to fight, teeth and fists, with somebody else to get that top place. So it seems that these very human attributes are being taken out of us every day. And then I want to ask you a question. And by the way, you mentioned some couple of words in there, vulnerability and legacy. And I want to ask the audience a question about this. But before that, Kirstin, the next question that I want to ask you, and that I would love for you to develop, is the 4 attributes of leading with your head and heart. But I want
Yeah.
to go to the audience, and I want to ask everybody this question. I love the word legacy, by the way. I think so much about that word, because I think about my own role, right, in society, in the world of HR. And I think all the time about, in 20, 30, 40 years from now, how do I want people to remember me? What change, what impact do I want to have made in the world by that time, right? So for those of you in the audience, say, just post in the chat one attribute of those leaders that you have worked with, that have left a significant legacy and impact in your life. One thing they had that created that legacy and impact. No, it doesn't matter if it was 50 years ago or if it's just right now. One attribute of the leaders that have created very positive, long-lasting legacy and impact in yourself. Coming back to you, Kirstin, the 4 attributes of leading with heart and heart.
So everything you were talking about before, in terms of what we're rewarded for at school and at work and promotions, all encapsulated by what I call in this metaphor our head-based attributes. So and we need all of these, by the way. So it's not a matter of you want someone to be more head or more heart or have stronger. We actually need all of them. And so for those who we know that are, let's use poor old accountants who are traditionally seen as being head based, they need to obviously bring in their heart. But then I know plenty of charitable leaders, not for profit leaders, who are all heart, that are as an equally unhelpful. You need both. And one message for anyone listening, I'm going to talk about these attributes. You can go and measure your own for free, get a personalized report. Just visit headheartleader.com. So the 4 head-based attributes, and this has all come out of research I've done here with one of the universities. The first is curiosity, no surprise there. And this is being, having a genuine thirst to fill gaps in your knowledge and understanding that, you don't have all of the answers. Second is wisdom. And in this context, it's all about gathering data and evidence and thinking through consequences before making decisions, really looking at logic and data and all of that. It's all around decision making. The third, now this one was the most important. It correlated the most highly in my research for all 8. And I've called it perspective, but in layman's terms, it's reading the room. So it's being able to read the room that you're leading in, really understanding the environment and context that you're leading in. But importantly, what I've found is that leaders who are high in perspective, or being able to read a room, notice who's missing from the room as well. And of course,
Wow.
for diversity and inclusion, that's incredibly important, because you're recognizing what voices aren't in the
Yeah.
room and you're seeking them out.
Missing in the room even when they are physically there, right?
Yeah, if you're not hearing them. So you're someone who's truly able to read a room. And I know we generally know what that means, but it's much more than just, who I should go and network with. This is about who's missing. And you can also see what's going on outside of the room in your industry and things like that. So perspective is incredibly important. And the last attribute of leading with the head is capability. And this is not about necessarily having the capability to do whatever it is you do, although that's clearly important, but it's having that growth mindset or a true belief in what you can do and developing the capability of others. So they're the 4 head base. They never are all that surprising. They're the kinds of things we're rewarded for, as we said, at school and in college. But you've got to balance that with leading with the heart. And this is where I believe we all have the attributes, but our organizations don't necessarily, support us bringing them to work. Not all organizations, but
Yeah.
many. The first is humility, and humility is so important for leaders because it means we're actually willing to seek out the contributions of others. We're prepared to admit we don't have all the answers, to your point before. We
Yeah.
know that some things are beyond our control. In the research, curiosity and humility are really closely linked because obviously you don't tend to be curious if you think you're the smartest person in the room. What's there
Yeah.
to be curious
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
The second attribute, self-awareness, and we obviously all understand what self-awareness is, and that's really just being aware, and I'm particularly focused on this awareness of the impact that we're having on those around us. The third is courage, and courage is really closely linked to psychological safety
Yeah.
because obviously you have the courage to speak up in the face of pressure not to do so, but you're also creating environments where others can. And finally, empathy. And, obviously, we know there's been a lot of focus on empathy, but it's more than just putting yourself in the shoes of others. It's actually accepting that my lived experience is different to those I lead and that I need to understand what those lived experiences are or seek to and hear those different voices. So, across those 8 attributes are all of the elements of leadership we've learned about before, but what's new is really getting people to appreciate that it's this art of knowing what is needed when, which is key for modern leaders. So there are some times where it is going to be all head. It will be a crisis at work that needs every bit of capability you've got and curiosity to solve a problem. And that is how you're going to be most effective in that
Yeah.
moment. But just as quickly, you may need to very quickly pivot to being pretty humble about the outcomes that have just happened and how you're going to bring people along on that journey with you. And I think for what I've found with this sort of operating system, I guess is how I'm thinking about it, is for people who have been all head, who might read words like vulnerability and courage and go, I don't know how to apply that in my
Yeah.
day. This is validating that what they're doing is needed and necessary and important, but it's impossible to be truly successful as a leader unless you bring in all of these 8 attributes at
Yeah.
different points in time.
Thank you, Kirsten, for that. Can you repeat the website, by the way, so that people here take note? You can go and take, I did it yesterday, by the way. You can go and take your own head and heart assessment in
Yeah.
the website. What is it again, Kirsten?
The address is headheartleader, all one word, .com.
Okay.
And more than 15,000 people from, I think we're up to 91 countries since
Wow.
January have taken it. So I'll be excited to hear how people find it. But it'll show you on those 8 attributes, they'll rank them for you in order of strength. And you'll also get to see if you tend to be more a head or a heart based leader. But as you know, with self assessments, Enrique, it's a point in time and you might do it in a month and it'll be
Yeah.
different. It's
Yeah.
just a moment for you to really reflect on your
Yeah.
own
It's
modern leadership.
self-awareness, which is one of the four
Exactly.
heart attributes. And
Yeah.
let me ask you this: when you look at the results, changing over time, of course, but when you look at the results, what is the one attribute that you are like, wow, this is obviously the winner of all the 8 attributes, and this other, I don't want to call it a loser, but is the one that is at the bottom of the list, that when people take
Well,
those assessments, like aggregated,
yeah.
data.
I mean, I try not to have favorite children, but the data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Perspective, which is the head-based attribute,
Yeah.
which is reading the room, but by every stretch and every way you cut the data, if you have that scored highly, you're most likely to have scored high in all 8 attributes, well, the other 7 attributes.
Oh,
So it
wow.
is a real superpower and reminder for everyone that's being able to read a room and really understanding who's in the room. And obviously, it could be a literal room, but it's more likely to be your organizational culture, your organization, the industry you're in, your country, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. But you can really understand how to adapt your leadership for different environments, and you're noticing who's missing from the room as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Kirsten. Let me ask you this question. And I am going to say what you said at the beginning, by the way, of the conversation. So I'm going to say it again. There are 1.5 million books about leadership, right? And And I'm sure that a book that talks about leading from the heart and the head and bringing all those attributes together is the way to go, because we talk a lot about that. But for a leader, you are a leader in an organization, and every day you get 15 calls from people trying to sell you a leadership course, a leadership book, and then you're thinking, my goodness, this is difficult, man. Like like 8 attributes here, 5 characteristics over there, 5 traits over there, 20
Yeah.
things over here. How do
Tell
you
me
make
about
sense
it.
of it all? Like how as who wants to be a leader when you have to learn all these things, when it's so hard, especially because you're working with people, which is really, really, really tough. So how do you make sense of this all? How do you make sense of the entire story of being a leader? And why would you want to be a leader in the first place if you have to deal with all this stuff?
Look, I'm as cynical as the next person, don't worry. And, even when I was doing my leadership research, my PhD, I was chairing a major company here, and I was quite cynical about leadership research. And I was thinking, these academics have never led anything in their life. So
Exactly.
it really is a valid issue. I think what I tried to do, and why I, dived into this anyway, is because none of the attributes I went through aren't really what's relevant. You don't need to be able to rattle them off and know exactly which one you're using when. What I have found here, and the book was incredibly successful in Australia and ended up straight into our bestseller list. And I think that's because.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think it's because it was so relatable to people who don't buy leadership books. And that's the
Yeah.
majority of people.
Yeah.
People who aren't interested in being given another sort of way to lead. I trust that everyone actually has all these skills. What I'm really wanting people to take away from my work is reminding them that they're already a leader. So, your question about why would anyone want to be a leader? I don't think you have a choice. So even if you have a family, you are in a sporting team, you are, working on the checkout at a local supermarket store, you are still leading yourself, and you're leading those around you, and that impact. Remember, we talked about the legacy. I write in the introduction to the book a moment in the pandemic when I went to our local supermarket where a young checkout operator had to deal with a really difficult customer. And I was ready to step in and defend this young woman who probably was only 19 or 20. She would have been the most junior employee in this major supermarket chain. And she handled this customer with such grace and, frankly,
Mhm.
more respect than I probably could have mustered myself at that moment, that it was such a reminder that we are all leading. It doesn't
Mm.
matter what our formal title might be.
Mm.
And so I want people to feel that that's not a scary thing, that it's not a recipe for disaster, but in fact, something to acknowledge and then understand that if leadership is simply a series of moments, let's think about the impact that each of those moments can have. And so when I do head and heart workshops, and I'm coming out. I'm so excited, Enrique. I arrive next Monday, the 11th of September, and I've got a tour of the US. So I'll be around
Nice.
for about a month. Yeah.
I
Doing
hope you come
lots
to
of.
Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yeah, well, I haven't got that in the diary yet. Maybe we'll have to change that. But I've got loads of different events I do with organizations and conferences and things. But it's really for audiences that aren't typically thinking about, their own leadership, and reminding them that it's not difficult. So leading with your heart shouldn't be something we actually have to spell out how to do. It
Yeah.
should be something that we should encourage the people in our organizations to feel free to do. We know they can do it, but perhaps they don't feel they can do it in their role or in their organization.
Yeah, it seems. I think I am reminded of something that Nelson Mandela said once. I can't. I'm gonna be butchering the quote, but it's something like along the lines of love comes more naturally to us than hate, right? And in this case, leading with love and kindness and empathy and self awareness and humility is more natural to us than leading with, with just focusing on work and just focusing on competition. But we just have to be free to express that. And very often we're not, right? And some of us are even punished, for leading that way, at work. Some people are, retaliated against when they try to be empathetic toward others.
Exactly, and, I mean, that would tell you that's a toxic culture that you probably
Mhm.
don't wanna be part of.
No, yeah.
I I actually write a column every week in our major newspapers that are syndicated here, and I take questions from readers all over Australia about workplace and leadership and careers and things, and, oh my goodness, is that an eye opener to the kinds of organizations where, people aren't being treated with head and heart, and it's
Yeah.
all about deliverables. But ultimately, people move on from those. And I think, I spoke about dinosaurs before. They are, becoming extinct. I think
Yeah.
more and more they're not the kinds of leaders that boards in particular are looking to appoint. And I think that's a good thing. I think times have changed. Expectations of younger employees and workers and older employees and workers have changed. And we want to have leaders that put people at the center, not think of them as a widget, obviously, that's just something to put into a schedule and look at their outputs and deliverables.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you one more question, Kirsten, before we wrap up. But I want to acknowledge once again, our audience from all over the world. And I want to ask you all, in the context of course, of this conversation, the 8 attributes of modern leadership, including 4 head, 4 heart. What is one thing that you, in the audience, one thing that you are like, 8, I want to learn them all and I want to do them better, but I want to focus the next, few days or weeks in this one, right? What is one of those attributes that you want to put a lot of energy in, that it matters to you? And again, it's bringing them all together in your leadership style, but maybe you want to focus on one of them and learn how to do it better over the next few days and weeks. So what is one of those attributes that you would like to focus on in your own career path going forward? So just put it in the chat. And even if it's not in the 8 attributes that Kirstin mentioned before, what is one thing from a leadership standpoint, knowing that you and I and Kirstin and all of us are leaders, what is one thing that you would love to develop in yourself to become a better leader, whether you have the title or not? Kirstin, going back to you for our last question. For new leaders, my question is going to be for new leaders, especially new people leaders. I'm referring to them that are, for whatever reason, whether they were thrown into that position or whether they wanted it and they are in the path of learning. How would they go about embracing these 8 attributes when they simultaneously have to lead a team? They have to get the work done. They have to learn how to be a good leader. So they have a lot on their plate, especially when they are beginning their journeys. How can they operationalize these 8 attributes, head and heart?
I think that first 90 days, which is always talked about, humility and curiosity are an incredibly powerful
Yes.
combination. So you're
Head
going
and
to have
heart.
yeah, head and heart. And it is often always this real balance, perspective and empathy, head and heart. So I think you're going to have members of your team who are going to be waiting to see how you go. Are you just another leader that's going to come and say all your new things and then move on and they'll just wait for the next one? Or are you really going to invest the time to understand your team, understand how that team best operates? And I think the only way you can do that is genuinely being curious about how things are done, why they're done that way, what works, what doesn't, and really listening with curiosity. And that requires significant humility. And I know from having been a new leader, myself in numerous occasions, because even as you get more and more senior, you're still in new roles, that,
Yeah.
sometimes you can get wrapped up in the moment and be very excited and you've got your new title and your new, authority, but you need a huge amount of humility to really succeed in that early few days. And so
Yeah.
that's the combination of head and heart I think can work best in the early times.
I love that, and I love curiosity and humility. Especially, I think recently, within the past few months, I read an article about how leaders who come with an agenda of change when they are new leaders, and they want to impose it in the team, they generally fail pretty quickly. Whereas those that are asking questions to understand, to listen, to know where the team is, to know what's been tried before, because generally we don't see that. We don't see the history of what's happened in that team and what's failed, what succeeded. And you just come with that agenda of like, this is what I want to do. Those that are like more curious and more humble about the kind of information they get generally have the right ingredients for sustainable success going forward.
Absolutely. And back to the art of modern leadership, it's knowing when to switch that up a notch. There'll be a
Yeah,
period of time where, okay, now you actually need to start making decisions,
yeah,
bringing people in, being aware of the impact. You might need some courage to really change things. But the art is knowing when that's needed and how to
yeah,
best achieve that.
yeah. Awesome, Kirstin. Well, thank you so much. It is almost midnight for you, and I truly appreciate that you have
Oh,
spent this time with us sharing insights and the beautiful results of your research with me and of course our community.
I'm thrilled to be here on the day it's released
Yes,
worldwide. What an honor for me. So thank you for having me, and thank you to the whole community, to everyone listening. You people leaders do such an important job.
yeah,
I'm so grateful to
yeah.
have you.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. A couple of things, by the way. Once again, headhardleader.com. You
Yes,
go there and
headheartleader.com. And
go there
uh,
and take your assessment. Get your book on Amazon or whatever platform you use to
yes,
buy your book. And Kirsten, when do we know what your book tour will be in the US? Would you have dates or a calendar
yes,
that people can check out
yes.
on?
All of the above. Find me on LinkedIn. So go and
Okay.
find me now if you're watching on LinkedIn Live, KI, or you can see the spelling there. And send me a DM or contact me through my website. We'll get in touch. Love to talk
Awesome. Well,
with you.
thank you so much. We would love to know, and I'm gonna see if you are nearby where I live to go and meet you in person. Hopefully, not at 11:40 p.m., but at a more
No,
decent time.
this was
I
a one-off.
This is one of now you go to bed. Please
Ah,
rest, and I appreciate you being here. Everybody connected in our live chat today. Thank you so much for being here. We will have many more of these. We are now going into the fall conversation since we took a little bit of a break in the summer. And also stay tuned because we have many events planned for you in Hacking HR, one of which is coming up in a couple of hours from now here on this LinkedIn community as well. So Kirstin, everybody, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you all soon. Thank you.